Our virtual conversation with the National Teacher of the Year, Rebecka Peterson. I'm Jeanne Qvarnstrom, Professor of Education, and we are very lucky to have, I will say, the rock star of teachers with us today. And I think you're really going to enjoy hearing her experiences. And this time in the spring semester, I think she'll give us some inspiration that we all need to cross over to the finish successfully. I certainly want to thank everybody who is joining us tonight. And during the program, if you want to add anything in the question and answers, the Q&A, you can write there. Also, Rebecka may invite you to write something in the chat. And then towards the end of the presentation, we'll have an opportunity for you to raise questions as well. So I thank everyone for being here. And visitor today.
Thank you so much. No, technology's fun, right? I was muting my mic, the chat completely, and I thought, I'm coming up. I need to log back on. So thank you, Dominic, and everybody for being here this evening. We really appreciate it. It's an honor to introduce someone who's earned the 2023 National Teacher of the Year. I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, Rebecka. You're going to have to hear a little bit of your bio. She's taught math classes ranging from intermediate algebra to advanced placement calculus for 11 years at famous high school in Tulsa, Union. I've heard of Union before. And amid a challenging first year of teaching, she began the One Good Thing blog, which I love it. I've looked it up. Ms. Peterson credits daily posting on her blog with helping her recognize the beautiful and positive experiences occurring in her classroom. She's contributing over 1,400 posts to the blog. I don't know when, as a math teacher grading all those, you have an opportunity to post all those, but kudos to you, and I would encourage all of our visitors today to take a look at that. She's a proud immigrant, Swedish-Iranian descent, who has lived in several countries around the world. She's just talking about soon traveling to Sweden to visit her parents. Her parents traveled as medical missionaries. Her experience with supporting teachers, celebrating her diversity and math abilities helped inform Rebecka's efforts to create a supportive and accessible classroom for students. So it sounds like she's had some good teachers in her past. She currently lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma with her husband, Brett, and son, Jonas. And they enjoy crafting and playing board games, which I love playing board games. And before we hear from her tonight, I just wanted to tell all of our Lobos on the call tonight, I wanted to remind you to think about our institution's history. We were established as Sul Ross Normal College in 1914, and our name was changed to Sul Ross State Teachers College in 1923. And so our primary mission has been to develop excellent educators for this region of Texas. So it's in our DNA, the value of teachers and educators. So it's really special that Dr. Qvarnstrom put this together, and Rebecka's joining us tonight. Just like Rebecka, you guys that are on the call are critical for today's society as we continue to grow increasingly diverse and complex. She's demonstrated excellent in her classroom. It's important that we, as all teachers, understand, connect with, and empower our students from diverse backgrounds. It's not just a skill, but I think it's a moral imperative, and we need to ensure that every student receives the quality education they deserve. So as you start to get prepared to listen to Ms. Peterson's wisdom and insights today, I just want you to reflect on the Sul Ross teachers, the future educators, our responsibility, and the potential we have to possess, to shape the future of our communities. Let's recommit ourselves tonight as we listen to Ms. Peterson to the pursuit of excellence. And we're so thankful that you joined us tonight, Ms. Peterson. I'll turn it over to you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for those beautiful words, Bradley. So appreciated. I am so thrilled to be with you all tonight. I get to interact with students and teachers throughout the country. And that's so special because we're like fairly close to each other. We're in the same time zone, which doesn't happen often, let's be honest. So yeah, I'm just like one state above you all. When people are like, where the heck is Oklahoma? I'm like, we are the hat of Texas. So thank you for that. But I was wondering if you could start, if you wouldn't mind, in the chat, just kind of telling me sort of the space you're coming from. Are you an undergrad student, a graduate student? Are you a counselor, a teacher currently in the profession? If you wouldn't mind just kind of dropping that in the chat so I can get a feel sort of for our audience tonight, that would be wonderful. Got an undergrad student, wonderful. So my hope is to talk for maybe 30 minutes or so, and then transition into some questions that that you all sent in, and then if we have time, we'll open it up to some more questions and answers. I am going to lots of undergrads. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. First grade teacher, graduate student. I am going to share my screen, and then Bradley, Jeanne, if you'll just let me know if anything looks off, because this will kind of convert here. So share that. Can someone unmute and let me know if you can see my screen?
Looks good.
Thank you. All right. Okay, well, I would like to talk to you today about creating a connected classroom, but before we start, I really just want to take some time to say thank you for choosing this profession. I believe education is what's still right with our society, and I believe that this is the bedrock of democracy. And so as not just a fellow educator, but as a mother, I want to say thank you for intentionally dedicating your life to serving the future of our country. I believe that as educators, we stand with one foot firmly grounded in the reality of what is, while the other stands in the hope of what can be. And it's this intersection of what is and what can be that keeps us going and keeps us pursuing excellence in education and equity in education for the future of our country. So a little bit about me. This is my wonderful family. My husband of 14 years, Brett, and our sweet miracle baby, Jonas, who is not a baby anymore, but a second grader at a union school as well. We live here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we just really enjoy spending time together. Brett is kind of like the calm to my up and downs. He's a CPA, so we really like numbers in our household. And Brett actually took a leave of absence this year. He put his entire career on hold to support me. This school year, I travel a lot. I'm released from classroom duties for a year to learn from, listen to, talk with educators and education advocates. And Brett just said, this year is about you and is about teachers. And so he took a step back from his career to support me and to support Jonas. We also have two kitties. I love cats. That's Penny on the left, and she's 4, and Donnie, he's almost 14. Donnie is kind of our grumpy diabetic cat, but we love our cats, right? I have only grown up with cats, and then a few months ago we decided to add another family member to our household. So this is Otto, who Jonas got for Christmas this past year, and I'm still not sure I'm like a dog person, but I'm definitely an Otto person. Even we have like matching hair and we have matching hearts. Like we really like people and we really want people to like us back. So I'm a huge Otto fan. This is my 15th year in education. I actually started at the college level and taught for 3 years there. And then I pivoted and have been at Union High School ever since. I started there in 2012. I am, as Bradley said, an immigrant, a really proud immigrant of Swedish Iranian descent. My mom is 100% Swedish. My dad, we're actually going to Sweden next month to go visit her and her family, and my dad is 100% Iranian. And I like to joke that I'm what you get when you mix two very different geographical locations together. In addition to being an immigrant, I was, as Bradley said, I'm the daughter of medical missionaries. So by the time I was 16, I had lived in 4 different countries. And to be honest, like moving so much, like from continent to continent, it left me feeling really quite untethered. And I'm, very, very grateful for my global upbringing now as an adult. But as a child, I often felt like I had to earn my spot in the classroom. I didn't often feel like I belonged because of who I was. I felt like I had to perform, like I had to learn how to talk like an American, dress like an American, make the grades to make my American teachers happy. And I say all that because coming to teach at Union High School, although it has had its challenges, ultimately has been a really safe place for me to land. We're a really diverse district. 80% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. 62 languages are spoken. And so we have a real commitment to providing like a culturally rich experience for our students. And so as a teacher, it's just been, like I said, a really soft place for me to land. And I say, like, what was untethering as a child really tethers me to my students, many of whom know what it's like to almost feel like you're in one culture when you're home and a different culture when you're at school. And part of my teaching philosophy now is that I don't ever want a student to feel like they have to work to fit in. I want them to know that they belong exactly as they are, right? No need to perform, that everyone's in, everyone belongs, everyone has a seat at the table. To me, that is the foundation of democracy. And I believe we as teachers safeguard that foundation. Brett always says I have to add some hobbies, otherwise I come off as a robot. So Bradley said these as well. I love crafting. We love playing board games in our family, and I bring them to the classroom a lot as well. And I also love writing, which I'll talk a bit more about in a bit. So what is a connected classroom? Well, to me, a connected classroom is where students feel connected to the content. Certainly, they know what they're learning and why. They feel connected to their peers, so they feel comfortable to make mistakes, ask questions, and try again in front of their peers. They certainly feel like they're connected to their teacher, right? Same thing. They feel safe in front of their teacher, right? They show up as their authentic self. Students feel connected to themselves, like they know who they are and who they're becoming. They know they're starting to learn more about metacognition when they need to take that beat. And then they're starting to feel connected to their world, right? They're starting to see like, what is my place in the community and how can I serve my community? But I think a connected classroom is also where educators feel all those connections, right? They feel connected to the content, to their peers, to their students themselves and their world. Ultimately, a connected classroom, a connected culture is where everyone belongs. Everyone's in, everyone has a seat at the table. We belong to each other. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about kind of how we can build these connections. And I really hesitate with the word like strategies because I feel like most of these things are really kind of small. I call them trust acts. But I think small acts built over time, I know, because calculus teaches us this, they have exponential impact. And so I think about this analogy that Dr. Brene Brown uses, and she says, everyone you meet is sort of carrying around like an invisible marble jar. And as you do things to earn their trust, you're sort of adding marbles into their jar. But if you do something to break their trust, sometimes marbles spill out of that jar. And when it's time for that person to find a safe place, time for them to go to someone they can trust, they're assessing like, how many marbles have you put in my jar, right? Or have you caused marbles to fall out of my jar? And so I love this analogy because I think it's so true of teaching, because there are days where I feel like I'm doing a really good job of adding marbles, right? And there are days, honestly, that I have to kind of go back and apologize for. And because I spilled some marbles, you know, because this is really human work. And so I love this analogy of continuing to add marbles to build trust, because I believe that trust builds connection, and connection is how we heal. So I'm going to kind of talk about like 3 little buckets if we have time. I actually thought we'd start with the end of the year connections, because we're at the end of the year. So if you're a current teacher or if you're student teaching, maybe some of these sound good to you. And then I thought we'd transition to the beginning of the school year, since that's kind of what's next. And then if we have time, just kind of connections, trust acts I build with my students throughout the year, throughout the weeks. So let's start at the end. Let's start with end of the year memories. So one of my very favorite things, and I'm going to give you all of these slides as well at the end, but one of my favorite things to do at the end of the year is to create a class art project. And so I started doing this. I wish I had done it earlier. I started doing this a few years ago, and I just take a canvas and I draw kind of like sloppy, like green stems. And then I pick a color for the year. So that first one was red. And I got some different shades of red acrylic paint, put it on a plate for each of my students, and they each put their thumbprint on there. And then I have a Clorox wipe ready to go. And as my students see these throughout the year, they often say like, what's that? Are we going to get to make one? What color is our class going to be, right? And as I display this, I hope that I'm sending the message that they leave both a literal and figurative mark, right, in our classroom, but also in my heart. And this is just a really fun thing to do, like last day of school, last week of school. It really makes us feel like, yeah, we belong to each other. I also have my favorite project to do at the end of the school year is called Create and Serve. And those are literally the directions. Go create something. The only stipulation is that it is like true to you. Don't go draw something if you don't like drawing, you know. If you love basketball, create a reel of your basketball highlights, right? And then once you've tapped in, once you've created something, then tap out and go serve your community somehow. And then we sit around, you can kind of see us, we sit around a big circle the last day of school, and sometimes the second to last day of school, and students share how they serve their communities. And sometimes that is, you know, I mowed grandma's lawn, or I got groceries for my neighbor, or I made sandwiches and passed them out to people who don't have homes. And like nothing's necessarily big. And I think that's the whole point, right? That like if we each tap in and then tap out to where our hearts are pulling us, then maybe that's like actually how we change our communities. This is one of my favorite videos from Create and Serve Day. One of my students said, well, I love karate. And I said, great. How are you going to turn that into serve? And he said, I'm going to teach you how to break a board. And I said, I'm sorry, what? If you can't tell, I am quite petite. I am vertically challenged, as we say. And so this is Alex. This is used with permission. So I got 2 practice boards, and I'm going to fast forward. Then I got... Now it's time for the real board.
All the way back. Go through. You go 1, 2, 3.
It is just one of my favorite days. And I do this towards the end because honestly, largely because throughout the school year, I feel a lot of pressure as an AP teacher to work through that content. But I think this would also be a beautiful project to do kind of like midway through a semester or even a quarter, because we feel so like close to each other after this day. So here's some more ideas, and I will provide links for all this as well. But so I teach high school mathematics, and I say and I say this with all the love in my heart, they're like kindergartners who know like a little bit more math, and they love scratch and sniff stickers, right? They love the cheesy awards so I'll give them like animal like awards, like or certificates at the end of the year, and you can personalize these. So you have the Nuts for Learning Award for your love of collecting information in AP Calculus, the Foxtastic Friend Award for being quick to make everyone feel welcomed in AP Calculus. Just like silly little certificates, right? That are just fun and sort of cement this idea that this was like a little family we created in 9 or 10 months, right? Another thing I love to do is just pick a favorite kids book to read. And some of my favorite memories are my 17, 18-year-old saying like, can we come sit on the carpet? And they just like make a little circle and we read, the places you'll go. And then I don't know, oftentimes like I have been asked to sign this book for students by their parents, and they've had teachers all throughout their schooling sign this book. And so I've kind of flipped that, and I have my students sign this book every year. Another thing, and this is a labor of love, let me tell you, but I love to do this. I don't do it every year because it does take time, particularly for those of us who have, 140 kids. I love to make a word cloud that has like their name as the biggest word, and then adjectives or words that their peers use to describe them. So I just make a Google form, and each question is a name, and then students put words for each of their peers, and then I take the spreadsheet from that form and make a word cloud, and then I pull out the teacher special, which is print, laminate, and slice, right? And then each student has like this bookmark, and I still get messages from honestly like 10 years ago where students are like still using that bookmark, or found that bookmark you gave us. And I don't know of any other profession like this one, where people think about us like years, decades down the road. Okay, so those are some of my fun like end of year activities. Now let's talk beginning of the year. So I spend a great deal of time thinking about and organizing my classroom space. So I just kind of want to give you a little like glimpse into my classroom. I want a space that doesn't really have a front or back or side or middle. I want the space to encourage communication and collaboration. I want to really center my students, and I want to center their ideas. I want them to really think about the room as a collective. And then I have, other pieces sprinkled around the room to kind of talk about like my message, right? Like I love Ted Lasso, so the believe sign is up there. But then around my door, I say, when you enter this classroom, you are kind, authentic mathematicians. You are respected, safe, cherished, valued, loved. You are the reason I'm here. And so I have quotes all around my classroom. I'm thinking about like what message does this physical space send to my learners, right? I'm very, very intentional about that. So let's talk first day of school, right? I love this quote by Todd Whitaker. It's a great quote. He says, the best thing about being a teacher is that it matters. The hardest thing about being a teacher is that it matters every day. And I would add, but especially the first day, because you all, my first year of teaching high school, so I taught 3 years at the college level where, students are paying to hear what you had to say. And then I switched to the high school level where students are like more or less forced by the government to hear what you have to say. And I was told, like in new teacher orientation, like kids just want to have fun the first day of school. Kids want to have fun. Kids want to have fun. I was like, okay. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I think more than wanting to have fun, kids want to feel safe. And structure and procedures help our kids feel safe. And kids want to feel seen, particularly post-pandemic. So here are some things. I greet them with a smile and a handshake on day one. Sometimes I'll even like go so far as like almost bribing, right? I'll have like candy ready to go. Like, I'm here, I'm ready to have a good day. And I, as they're coming in, I would give a handshake, and I ask them to say their name, and so I can mark it off. So I'm taking attendance while I'm greeting them, and this is coming from my own background, I don't have to, I won't put myself in a situation where I mispronounce a name, right? I had several teachers who would, call everybody by their last name, Miss Jones, Mr. Smith. I was always Rebecca, because they would not say my maiden name, which actually we immigrated with the last name Kermanshahani, but we Americanized it as Kermanshahi. And still, like my teachers oftentimes wouldn't say my last name. And it's really, I know it's really small, but sometimes those interactions, like we lose some marbles, because I think very unintentionally send the message that you're different, right? And you don't quite belong. So I greet them with a smile. I'm taking attendance. I'm writing down phonetically if they're like going by a name that's different from what's on the roster, like, or if it is pronounced differently than I would have read it, right? I'm writing this down. I'm taking really good notes. On the first day, and really every day, there are always directions on the board to follow. And I think this sets a tone, right? Like, we're gonna get to work. And it may be as simple as like, make sure you pick up the paper on the counter on your way in, right? But there's always a task to do. Not an overwhelming task, but this sets the tone of like, we will be working in this class. There will be no waste of time, because our time together is so precious. And then I look for ways to model vulnerability. And what I did at the beginning today is really similar to what I do at the beginning of at the start of the school years. I just like share a little bit about my family, about our pets, about my journey. To be vulnerable, you don't have to be like super dramatic or sad. You just have to be real, right? And we need our students to show up as their real selves, right? They are not going to be comfortable making mistakes and asking questions if they feel like they have to wear a mask, And so if we want our students to be real with us, we have to be real with our students. And so I'm very intentional about sharing parts about myself on the first day of school and throughout the year. Procedures. First day of school, and I said this already, but I think first and foremost, students feel safe when they know what is expected of them. And so really, I would really encourage you, if you are a student coming into the classroom, think about all the little things, right? Because they're going to want to know, are you going to have a bathroom policy? Are you going to have a cell phone policy? What are students going to do right when they walk in? When should they pack up? I have like a 2-minute rule. So they're allowed to pack up 2 minutes worth of bell. So first day of school, I say, what time does this hour end? Oh, 9:20. Okay. What time can you pack up? Oh, 9:18. Okay. So are you going to pack up at 9:17? No. And we set these like ground procedures, right? They're not, I wouldn't even go so far as to say like, I just like the word procedure better than rule, I think, because these are like commitments we make as a whole, because we understand that learning happens best when we are committed to our learning as a collective. And then I start to learn my students' names and their stories. I learn their names very, very quickly. And I'm going to talk about some ways we can do that. Well, one way I kind of cheat the system is I pass around a like blank seating chart on the first day of school and have the students write in their names. And then I just walk around with that seating chart on a clipboard for the first week or so until I know their names. So that day 2, I can talk to them with their name, right? Because I can see right where they're sitting and what their name is. Also learn their stories. And this has taken different iterations as I've grown as a teacher and as I've gotten more bandwidth, because like I feel comfortable with the content now, right? Or more comfortable than when you're first teaching a class or a prep. But now I invite my students to sign up for a 15-minute time slot to just come tell me their story. And yeah, they just like tell me about their life, about their hobbies, about their clubs, about their experience with math classes. I really believe that kids spell love T-I-M-E. And so giving them a bit of our time and learning their stories goes so, so far. But I did not start out doing it that way. As an early career teacher, I would often just have them write me their story, like on the back of a About Me page. I love the idea also of using like name tents for the beginning. So this is Sarah Vanderwerf's work. She has them make a name tent, so their name on front and back of the tent, and then on the inside for the first week of school, she has a different prompt for them. And so there's a little box for them to answer, and then underneath, then she takes them after class each day and she responds, and then pass them back out day 2. She has a new question for them to respond to. They respond, and then she collects them, reads through them. So she's getting to know her students through writing. You know, I've also had them submit like videos. You can do it through Flipgrid, but we have to be like really, really intentional about humanizing the classroom experience, because our kids are first and foremost humans, right? And so it goes such a long way to ask about their story and ask about their lived experiences. And I think about like Alex, you know, who I knew that he loved karate because we had talked at the beginning of the year, but wouldn't that have been sad had I not known all year that I had this like amazing karate instructor in my class, right? Our kids deserve to have teachers who know their stories, and our teachers, we will feel so much more connected when we know our students' stories. I also love connecting to them through their parents and guardians. And just as like a caveat, I try to always say parents and or guardians, right? So I'm not unintentionally leaving somebody out. I send a survey at the beginning, and then I send out emails. I try to send an email every day to a parent about just something good that happened in the classroom. And you can kind of see my template here. It kind of pretty much stays the same, to be honest. Hello, I try to look for something good that happens in the classroom every day. Today I want to brag on blank, blank, and then I fill that in, and then I close with thank you for sharing, you know, your creative son or your intelligent daughter with us at UHS. He's a gem, you know? So just adding those marbles, building trust. Trust begets connection. Okay, and then I want to try to really go quick. A few other things that I love to kind of sprinkle throughout the weeks. I love to sort of create a plan for each week. And a few years ago, I thought, you know, I can commit to 5 minutes of the beginning of each class period to really help my students connect, right? I'm really, really lucky. We get 60-minute periods. So I was like, I can commit 5 minutes at the beginning of each class. So on Mondays, we have Mindful Mondays, and we just practice some breathing to really ground us in the present, because we know, right? We know the statistics about adolescent stress and depression, and I don't want to minimize that or say that that can just be solved by some breathing, but I also don't want to add to the stress, right? So we take some time to just focus on breathing. On Tuesdays, we have Tuesday tips. Is oftentimes I'll just give like a silly little tip, right, to my darling teenagers, and then about once a month we sort of flip roles in a way, and they get to be the tip givers, and they pen pal with an elementary school, and in the district, actually our son's elementary school. And these are some of the adorable cards we got before the AP exam. We've got good vibes, you've got this, show that test who's boss, and my students' faces, you know, they just light up when they both give and receive letters to their pen pals. Wednesdays, we have Wacky Wednesdays, so we just watch like a silly YouTube or TikTok or meme because we all need to laugh, right? Thursdays, we have Thinking Thursdays, so we'll do something kind of typically outside the curriculum, like a logic game or puzzle, which really allows me to see multiple kinds of intelligences, which has been so good. And then on Friday, we have Free Write Fridays. And this is the quote from the blog Bradley was referencing. And it is, every day may not be good, but there's something good in every day. And I have written something good that happened in the classroom every day. I have students with me. And then I ask them on Fridays to do the same. So they have their math journal, they turn to the back page. We've titled it One Good Thing. On the margin, they've written the date, right? And then I ask them to just take 2 minutes to reflect and write on something good from the week. It can be a word, a phrase, a paragraph. It doesn't have to be in English, and if it wasn't, you know, a good week, I say, I'm sorry. And I've had those weeks as well, had those months and years as well, right? But as humans, we're the author of our own stories. And today, in this week's chapter, we're going to make sure the good, the true, and the light has the final word. So I would just encourage you to think about like what matters to you. And how can you incorporate that in your weekly routine? Because our kids deserve to have teachers who are excited about what they're going to teach and who they're going to teach. And our teachers deserve to be excited to come to school and to connect. Some other reflective prompts I like to use, other than like, you know, what's one good thing from the week? What's one thing you want your teacher to know? Okay. Can be long, short, funny, serious, safe space. How are you feeling about this material? Right? If it's a digital, I told you a digital assignment. I told you I love cats, right? Which cat best describes you today? Expand on this if you'd like. Okay, and we're going to end with cats. So my hope for takeaways is that you understand what we cannot do all the things. All the things I showed you today, in no year have I done all of those. We just cannot do all the things. And I believe that if a practice is not sustainable, then it's not best practice. I believe that if we say yes to taking on something big, like when I said yes to learning and carving out time for all my students' stories, I had to figure out how to say no to something else. And that no was I figured out how to grade differently to protect my time. And so I hope you find just a couple small trust acts that give you joy, because as Gary Hogan says, joy is the oxygen of doing hard things. And I have the link. You can either use the QR code or the tiny URL there if you want. Some of these strategies I've embedded links for you into a PDF if you want to explore more. There are others that I didn't have time to talk about. But if you want to explore more, feel free to go to that link. And then I wonder if before we kind of get going on Q&A, if you all would jot down in the chat like one good thing from today, from this week. I believe when we are intentional about noticing those like small everyday moments, that we build our joy. And when we build our joy, we also build our strength and our resilience. So if you could drop in the chat one good thing from this week, I would love to see that. And then we will transition to some Q&A. Oh, that's a good one. It is the dream job, let me tell you. I get to travel quite a bit in this role. And you know, when people ask me like, what do I do? Because like my you know, my airplane buddy or my Uber driver or something, I'm like, I'm a teacher. And almost every time they start talking about a teacher who changed their trajectory. And I just like tuck these stories in my heart, right? And like breathe a thanks for this profession, for you all. I have never been prouder to be a teacher. I'm so proud to belong to you all, to be part of this collective. Baby chicks, I'm jealous. I want to be in your class. Yeah. Keep sharing the good for ourselves and also for the public, you know, because this is how we become really good ambassadors and advocates for our profession, because other people want to like talk about this profession, and they're going to keep talking unless we say, excuse me, I'm the one in this profession, and I'm going to tell you about the good and the true that is happening inside our classrooms. So I'm going to transition us, feel free to keep using the chat. I'm going to transition us to some questions and answers that you all brought in. So one question, and I hear this a lot in my travels, is I kind of put them in buckets. I hope that's okay, but it's more generally, it was sort of about unmotivated or like bored learners. And so, you know, like how do we motivate? Right. Then my district calls it the intentional non-learner, which I don't know that I love that. But so some things I already talked about: procedures, right? Beginning of school, I am thinking like, how do I not waste a single second? Because this sends a clear message that you're going to know what's expected and you're going to be held to that standard, and you're going to be held accountable for that. I also really try to put in like deposits. The longer you teach, the quicker you can figure out, you can kind of spot like, you're gonna give me a run for my money this year, right? and I really work at my relationship with those kids real quick, right? Sometimes that is like, hey, are you on the basketball team? Like, when can I come watch, right? Or, you know, like this, how you solved this problem was like chef's kiss, right? I love how you did X, Y, and Z. Or maybe it's like sending that email to the parent or guardian of like, this one good thing happened, right? So a lot of it is pre-work, if I'm being honest, about setting those procedures, about saying like, we're gonna work, and you're gonna work in this class. But for my my on-level courses, I will often give them the deal of, if you work, you're not gonna have homework, because my students, a lot of them work jobs to support their families. A lot of them are they have hard lives, you know? And when people say that's not college ready, I say, well, I taught at the college level, and at the college level, I only got to see them 3 days a week. I got to see them 48 times instead of 180 times. And it's not the same, right? And so oftentimes that's sort of the deal we have, to be honest. Like, we're going to work hard. And as long as you're working the whole hour and coming to class, like, you're not going to have much, if any, homework. Advanced courses, that's a little different. But in my on-level courses, that's a deal I make with them. And I really like sell that the first day of school, and they're pretty happy about that. So a lot of it's pre-work. If I am seeing some behavior that I'm not so fond of, like maybe they're putting their head down, or maybe not treating their peers with respect, I address it right away. I mean, everything is about being proactive. You cannot let behavior continue that you don't want to be part of your classroom culture. And sometimes that is, hey, can we talk? Can we talk after school or after class? Like, you're not in trouble. You're not in trouble. Sometimes it is, hey, are you and I okay? Have I done something wrong? But think of those phrases that feel like true to you. You know, maybe that doesn't feel true to you, but think of those phrases you can pull out real quick and that reconnect us. I say, like, you want to choose to be effective over being right. You know, and so it's really about building that culture of respect. And students you have to earn their trust and their respect. That is not like something that's always just given because we're adults, right? So yeah, what maybe before I go on, do y'all have like other thoughts about kind of that bucket? Any of that resonate or not so much? Any other questions with that one? Can they speak through the mic? I mean, I'd be happy for you to unmute yourself and go for it.
Dominic, can you fix that for Alyssa so she can speak?
Wow, it is such an honor to meet you.
Try again. Mine was really echoey the first time as well. I know it did the same. It did the same thing for me the first time I talked.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna speak kind of quietly.
I'm sorry. This is what I say. Technology works less for us because we're teachers. It's just like a law of physics.
Yes.
Do you want to drop it in the chat?
Let me see if I can speak away. Oh my goodness. Okay, yes, I can speak in the chat.
As Alyssa's typing that out, the other thing I thought about was one of the reasons you want to like really address behavior you're not fond of immediately is because if you allow behavior, you're sending a message to everybody else that says this is okay in our culture, in our classroom, and we don't want to be sending that message, right? When we are talking to students, what we say, what we don't say, what we do, what we don't do, they're all watching. They're all watching. And so the message is not just sending to one student, it's to all of them. So yeah, any behaviors. I had this one class. They were just so nasty to each other. And like I think they thought they were joking, but I was like, this is like not funny. And so my co-teacher and I instituted this rule called 2 nice things. I read about it online. I didn't make it up. Every time they said, and this again, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, anytime they said something like, you know, it was usually goofy, you know, like whatever. I'd be like, 2 nice things. You have to say 2 nice things now. And they're, you know, they'd be like, I like your sweater and I like your hair. But then they would call each other out and they're like, boy, you owe me 2 nice things. So that was just kind of sometimes but I say all that like to bring levity to it. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be so serious. Bring humor. And that can really like help diffuse a situation as well. Alyssa, I'm still keeping an eye on the chat, but I am also going to talk about this next bucket, which was like, how do you handle stress? And it was kind of like that. Oh, this is so kind. Yeah, okay, I'm going to skip to this question because I want what are your thoughts on technology in the classroom? Okay. Are we talking like phones and or laptops? I'm going to go with that unless I hear otherwise. And I will tell you that not every teacher agrees with me, but I have a no phone, but I don't want to see your phone policy in my classroom. And so I have a holder for them to put it in their their holder. Everybody has a number. And I say on the very first day of school, that starting tomorrow, you're going to have to put your phones up, and I'm going to put my phone away too. And here's why: because my job is to teach you. And the neuroscience says that it is very, very difficult, if not impossible, to store information into your working memory and your long-term memory if every time you're trying to make this connection, your synapses are trying to connect, right? But as they're trying to connect, every time you feel that buzz or hear that ding, they can't make that connection. And so how are we going to store information if our synapses don't connect, right? So I sell it to them very scientifically and very like business-like this is my job, and to do my job the best way, like this is what we're going to do. And then I have to monitor every day. I check, hey, Jose, Hen, I don't see your phone. Can you put that phone in, please? Like, and again, it's like really light. I don't make it a big deal, but I do enforce it, right? Laptops, I, as much as I can, I try to use them kind of sparingly, but there's so many great things to use in terms of technology as well. But when I can, I say share a laptop with your partner. Okay, why? Because then they're going to be less likely to switch tabs, right? They're going to be more focused, because now this is not just me kind of hiding behind a screen. Now this is a collaborative space where we are doing whatever's on the screen together. Not that that works for every single, project or assignment, but it works for me for probably 90% of the things I assign. If we're doing book work, I have a class set of books and I say, no laptops today, go share a book with your partner. So to me, it's balance, like everything, it's balance. So with AI, I feel like math teachers have kind of dealt with AI for longer than most, because for years we've had things like photomath, right? Where our students could just take a picture of the problem and photomath solves it for you. Not always like the fastest way. It's like sometimes, to get from Texas to Oklahoma, they go through Kansas and back down, but they get there. And so, yeah, I a few years ago, I flipped my classroom, meaning my students, I've created videos of my content that my students interact with. They're embedded questions, so they can't just push play on the lesson and leave and come back. They have to interact with the content, and they do that at home. And then when we come to school, we do what would typically be the homework. And I should preface, this is for my advanced classes. What would typically be the homework we do together. Why? Because then I know exactly what they're doing, right? And I can see the kids who are helping each other, the kids who are asking for help. I can see the ones who are shyer and maybe like they're quite lost, right? So I know exactly where every kid is, because I'm spending my time now doing math with them instead of math at them, which is really like kind of the traditional model of a math class, right? But I would say it was AI that math, it's not what we were calling it at the time, but that's what it was, that like forced me to rethink, how are we going to really learn? And I'm a much better teacher for it. So I know like AI is scary. Like I'll be honest, I'm still like kind of worried about it, but I think there's also a way to like harness technology so that we can connect even more to our students. Okay, I'm reading this one because I think this is what I was going to talk about next. Find a balance on trying to stay refreshed and focused as a teacher, bringing the same zeal to work. Yeah. Yeah. No, this is such a valid question, Valerie. And sometimes I do a better job of it than others, if I'm being honest. Teaching, we just read, like teaching is the best job because it matters. It's the hardest because it matters every day. But what I would, and I think I said it, like if the practice is not sustainable, then it is not best practice. So if you are going home with tons of grading, that is not sustainable, right? Like, we're going to have to figure out how to grade differently or not grade as much. Listen, I have thrown a whole lot of papers in the recycle bin before, right? Like, you were here, you got full credit, good. Why? Because like, I want to be here for you tomorrow too, and the next day, and the next day, and the next year. And we have to figure out sustainable practices. And here's sort of like my barometer. Does it bring me joy? It brings me a whole lot of joy to bring in games. And so I might work a little bit harder to make a fun game, right, for a review day or something. It does not bring me a whole lot of joy to grade. So let's do that in class so I can see what you're doing. Or let's have you self-grade, self-assess. Let's do more formative assessments. What brings you joy, right? And really, and it takes a little bit of time, but the longer you're in teaching, the more you realize, okay, I'm spending more and more of my day doing the stuff I love, right? Connecting with my students. I'm spending more and more of my day doing the stuff that I like went into the profession for. Now, let's talk about work-life balance, because I feel like we have this idea, right, of I need to spend X hours at work and then like X hours or the same amount of energy with family. And they're like very compartmentalized. And some parts of it will be compartmentalized, but I also think there's this conversation to be had of like, sometimes the two lives can kind of intersect, right? And so my family knows how much I love teaching, and they support me in that, and they become part of that story, right? Jonas has been coming up to the classroom summers since he was in diapers. You know, he's helped me set up my classroom every year for 8 years. Brett knows when it's time to talk about derivatives, I'm going to need Rice Krispie treats, right? Because the derivatives of acceleration are snap, crackle, pop, if you didn't know. So he knows he's going to go get some Rice Krispie treats. We go to football games. We go to basketball games. We go to the all-school musical. There are times where my school life and my personal life are the same. And I think it's so important that like our families see us kind of in the like Mrs. Peterson role as well. So yeah, I think, and then there are times, you know, where I'm like, I have to get these recommendation letters done, and I'm going to be working this weekend, and my family understands. And then I make sure that the next weekend there are no rec letters to bring home. Right? Sometimes this idea of balance is like we have balance all the time. We are not going to have balance all the time. We are not. And so the key to me is communicating with our family. Yeah. And with our students. I mean, some of the sweetest notes were like, thank you for telling us that you were home with your son today, because that taught me that you're prioritizing your family. This question's so good. How are you able to find the right mentors? Okay, this is how. You watch teachers interact with kids. And the ones who are interacting with kids in the way you want to interact with them are the ones you scoot up real close to. The ones who are not interacting with children or not living lives, as I say, worthy of our children, we're going to find someone else, right? Yeah. And you scoot up close and you say, I love, and be specific. I love how you said X, Y, Z, right? Or I love how you taught A, B, C. Can we find some time to sort of digest that? Yeah, and they're going to want to, because see, teachers want to grow too. And this was another question, like how do we grow? And a big part is like we find new teachers to mentor. I'm really, really lucky that I had 4 of my former students are colleagues in my math department, and to seeing them grow, right? Like encouraging them to become teachers, cheering them on in college, bringing them back home to teach, and then encouraging them as early career teachers is a way I've been able to grow in as a teacher and as a leader. These were such good questions.
I'm going to just step in because I know a lot of the people in the audience, and I know that they are great students and great teachers, and they may be interested someday in being the National Teacher of the Year. Would you tell us what the application and selection process was and what it's like?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the application process is that all the 55 state and territory teachers of the year submit a portfolio, and how to become state teacher of the year varies greatly. But in Oklahoma, you are to be your state teacher of the year, you're the first district teacher of the year. Typically a district teacher of the year is the building teacher of the year. So I tell people it's like a 3 years of people like judging my professional career, you know. I was really ready to be done with the interviews. And so anyway, as state teacher of the year, then you're asked to submit a written portfolio. All 55 get read and scored. And then my year, we had 5 finalists, and they flew us 5 finalists to Washington, D.C., where we had an interview process where we gave a keynote. We gave, we kind of fielded some media questions, and then we did more like this, more like personal questions, right? More like in the work questions. And then a few days later, I get this call. And then about a month later, they made the announcement on CBS Mornings with Gayle King. Oh, what? And then a couple days after that, I was honored at the White House, literally in the Oval Office with my family, with my mentor. So it's just, y'all, like, what are these words coming out of my mouth? And then as National Teacher of the Year, I'm released from classroom duties for the year to, I think I've mentioned that, like to get to do stuff like this. Tomorrow, it's just like, it's an insane job. And that's what I tell people, like, I didn't win a competition. I'm not the best teacher. There's no such thing as the best teacher, by the way, because there's an infinite number of ways to be highly effective. But I was selected for this job for this school year, and my tenure is just about over. But as an example, like tomorrow I leave for California. Tomorrow's Tuesday. And then Wednesday I leave for Utah. And then Thursday I leave for Colorado. And then I'll be back in Oklahoma on Saturday. So it's like 4 states in 4 days. It's just insane, which is like why Brett took this year off to support me, to support Jonas. I was so intimidated during the interview process, like so intimidated. And this is what I did, and this is what got me through. I went on my Instagram, because a lot of my students after graduation, like I'll follow them, you know, and I just put on my story, like, I'm like gonna go interview tomorrow, and I don't know, it's making me emotional thinking about it. I don't know really like why I'm doing this. Like, can you like ground me, and can you just share a favorite classroom memory? And you all, my DMs blew up, as they say. And they were just feeding into me. And I just thought, like, what a microcosm of what teaching is, right? Because we give, right? And we weave this like community together. And then we take this step back and we're like, oh my God, like I just received so much more than I ever gave. And yes, I gave a hell of a lot. But what I receive in return to get to enter into these students' lives and to be part of their story, I mean, there's nothing like it. There is nothing like this profession.
I have a question as a former teacher and a school leader. What would you define, or what have been some of your favorite characteristics of the leaders in your life, school leaders that have been supportive of teachers? What do you look for in a supportive assistant principal or principal?
What a good question. Okay, so I would not be here without the lady who hired me, who then became my principal, Lisa Witcher. She was standing with me in the Oval Office a few months ago, no, a year ago now. She for me, she did what the best teachers do for their students. And that is, she saw in me what I didn't see in myself yet. I felt, and I was like dying with classroom management, right? And she would pick out like the things I was doing right and like sow those seeds of goodness in me and help me see the good that I was doing. And because as teachers, like you can, especially those of us who are really hard on ourselves, like we can just focus on all the things that are going wrong. And she would like pull me out of that and help me see what was going right, which is also what the blog did for me. She also gave me a lot of opportunities to grow and to lead. So even as a first year teacher, she said like, hey, can you come talk to this group of teacher leaders that I'm leading? And it was like, what? And so she created like these spaces, right, for me to share best practice, to engage in conversation. She like gave me this platform long before any title, right? Like she didn't need a title. I guess that's it. She didn't need a title to see a leader. She encouraged me to take risks. I really believe in risk taking, safe risk taking as an educator, because like, what's the worst that can happen? You go back to doing what you were doing yesterday, right? Like try it, try that project, try that experiment, try that seating chart, like just try it, because you get to come back and try it again tomorrow anyways. So she really encouraged risk taking. She encouraged me to be a researcher, right? She encouraged my own continuous learning. So I don't know, man, she's like the pinnacle for me in terms of like school leaders. And I've had other great leaders, but it's hard to hold a candle to Lisa Witcher. She's sort of like who is the bar is there. And yeah, but that's to me what she did. Like she is to me what I hope to be to my students. And she checked on me. I think that's a big thing. Like if you're going into leadership, check on your teachers. They might not be as okay as you think they are, you know?
Students, we have about 8 minutes, so take advantage. I mean, you can always find Rebecka online. You can find her on LinkedIn or Twitter.
Yeah.
If you want to interact with her.
I'll put in my
Places
Instagram
you can
handle
reach
too.
you. As a lot of these folks are going into education for the first time or have just started, oh good, we already have followers. You're gaining Soul Ross followers tonight. What were some of the lessons the first couple of years that you learned, of things that you would not repeat? And then what are some of the things that you learned that if you could go back to year 1 and 2, you would start earlier?
Well, so I kind of talked about how bad my first day of school was my first year. Like, oh guys, it was so bad. We were doing this like activity with like throwing airplanes and measuring like mean, median, mode, and I was like, it's gonna be awesome. Okay, you don't do that until you know who you're teaching, right? Like, I mean, it was chaos, you all. Like, I just cried and cried and cried. And then you're like, it's going to be chaos tomorrow. And it was, you know? And so that is like one thing I like really, really am serious about. The first day really matters. And listen, you can be warm and strict. Like that's one of the best compliments a kid ever gave me, who was like, Mrs. P, you are the nicest and the strictest teacher I've ever had, because the two are not mutually exclusive, right? Like they know I'm there for them. And part of that is because like, I don't let them get away with crap, right? I hold them to that. When we talk about like high standards, I feel like we're always talking about it in terms of academics. To me, like we have to talk about it in terms of behavior before we can even broach academics, right? So yeah, having like a more thought out first day, and like to me, like I am willing to sacrifice some fun on day one to make sure that I feel like I have control in my own classroom, especially as a newer teacher. I want you to feel comfortable in your own classroom, and you're going to feel more comfortable if you feel in charge, you know, and you're feeling in charge if you have like a bit of even a script, you know, like practice what you're going to say the first day, act it out if you need to. I don't know if y'all have read like Wong's like classroom management book, or you know, the first day of school book. Like those they're old, but they're like still pretty good. They really are. I'm reading the classroom management book right now. And then the other thing I really feel like I did wrong my first couple of years is coming from the college classroom. I thought like it was all about the mathematics, you know, and I like, man, I could teach you how to factor a trinomial in any way you want. And it like took me a bit to realize like what I teach is important, but it can never supersede who I teach, right? And so once I started to make that shift, I started to really find myself as a teacher, that like I'm there first and foremost for the kids. That math is the opening act, right? The main event is helping them live the truest, kindest, like most beautiful version of their lives. And so that was a real like shift for me. And that's, I think, when I really started to center their stories.
Any other questions from our students? I want to let Jeanne finish up with some thoughts, and then I'll say a few things, but I wanted to give those of you that were thankful for you joining us tonight another chance to ask Ms. Peterson any questions you might have. This is called wait time, new teachers.
That's right. I just put my email in the chat. I am very serious when I say like, please keep in touch. Like, I would love to be a resource for you. This is not, I'm not just saying it to say it. Talking to pre-service teachers to me is one of the most important parts of this job. So please let me know how I can support you as you're starting your own classroom adventures. You know, it is hard work, but my hunch is that none of you would be satisfied with easy work anyways. And so it is hard work because it is meaningful work. And it's hard because, you know, our work is not confined to the four walls of our classroom or the time of the school day, but it's beautiful work because our impact is not confined to that time and space either.
Dr. Qvarnstrom, do you have any concluding thoughts you'd like to share with us and your students that joined us tonight?
I have so much to say, Rebecca. You are extremely moving in all of your ideas, and I'm delighted for all of the students and teachers who joined tonight so that we can hear you. And I do want to really thank Dominic Percoco for setting this webinar up so that we could be together. So National Teacher of the Year, I salute you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thank you all for joining. I know it's, I know you're giving up your time, and that is not lost on me. So thank you for tonight, for yeah, for letting me like peek in a little bit and share about share what I love about teaching.
I'm sure they have all their assignments turned in for the semester.
Of course.
Twiddling their thumbs, but I mean, students that are with us and are alumni, I just want to remind you how, lucky you are to have Dr. Qvarnstrom in your corner. She works diligently throughout the year to put on special events for students and to bring knowledge and wisdom and celebration to our students. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You're very fortunate. And then Rebecca, it was, one of the things that we bonded over when we first talked to Rebecca is, public school teaching today is challenging. It always has been challenging. My parents were public school teachers. My mom was an English teacher. I remember her vividly grading papers for hours and wanting my mom's attention and grading essays. and so, there was stress involved then too, but especially the narrative around teachers in public schools sometimes gets a negative rap. But I think the joy and the focus on the good and the positive mindset that Rebecka brings to it really is refreshing and gives us a chance to find other people that share that same joy. I think when Rebecka said, find the teachers that share that light with students, we need to find and seek people out online, whether it's through Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn.
Yes.
Surround yourself with positive people. There are a lot of amazing, amazing teachers that, while stressed, they still have healthy families. They still have hobbies. They still are moms and dads, or, have pets. So, don't get bogged down by the rhetoric or, a couple of disgruntled folks that you may run across. Surround yourself with that positive network of people. And we hope that Sul Ross could be that for you. But Rebecka, we are truly thankful that you're with us tonight, and hope that all of you that are on this call find a way to reach out to her and thank her and just stay connected with her. She posts a lot of good content, and as she's going through state to state, we can pick up other contacts that she's doing great work with. So again, thank you, Dr. Qvarnstrom. Thank you, Rebecka. Thank you, all the Sul Ross students. We appreciate you, and let us know if there's anything we could do to help you.
Thank you, Bradley.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Jeanne.
Oh, it was delightful.